You're listening to the Turf Talk podcast from picksfromthepaddock.co.uk in association with racebetters.com. My exclusive interview with top trainer Oliver Sherwood. So obviously, hi Oliver. Firstly, thank you for joining us here on the Turf Talk podcast. Needless to say, any of our listeners will understand who you are, what you do. You've had an illustrious career. More recently, I presume what has to be sort of the pinnacle of your training career a few years ago. Many Clouds taking the Grand National. Looking back through your career, Oliver, would you probably consider that your best day as a trainer?
Yeah, absolutely. The whole year was magical. To go and win the Hennessy and then the National would be the highlight. The whole season was a dream, really. I think I'm right in saying he's the only horse to win a Hennessy and a National in the same year. So the National was something very special.
I mean, obviously, after that race, and as you touched upon with his Hennessy win, with his exploits previously, Many Clouds became very much the flag bearer for your stable. Needless to say, he's sorely missed and always will be. But what do you think made him such a good horse, and what do you think the racing public saw in him that made them gravitate towards him so much?
Well, asking that last question first, I think the racing public relate to a horse who wears his heart on his sleeve. He's a true fighter. What makes a horse that way? If I knew that, I think I'd be retired somewhere in Bermuda. But that I can't answer. That's the joy of the game we're in.
True.
Go on.
No, it's obviously Many Clouds probably a once in a lifetime sort of horse. His achievements are going to be very, very hard to surpass by any horse, let alone a horse from your stable. Saying that, though,
absolutely. I mean, I haven't got. I'm a middle-sized yard. I've got 60 boxes, 60 horses. I haven't got 150 horses. Not that I want them. And so to replace a horse like that that's what you try and do every year. Try and find another one.
I mean, looking at your current crop, I have to ask you sort of perhaps two questions. Firstly, do you have any horse that you're looking at aiming towards the Grand National this year, trying to potentially emulate such a success that Many Clouds had?
No, I haven't got one in that capable. No, I haven't got one as such at the moment.
No.
Not to say we won't have in a year or two's time, but definitely not for this season.
Not for this season, no. And obviously, as I touched upon before, Many Clouds became very much the star of your stable, as it were, and the flag bearer. Do you think of your current crop, is there any sort of horses that perhaps will sort of take that moniker, not necessarily as a chaser or to emulate his achievements, but to perhaps, I guess, likely to take a lot of the plaudits this year from your yard?
We've got a lot of very nice youngsters. You don't replace the likes of Clouds, Puff and Billy's, Deputy Dan's, all those sort of horses sort of overnight. You're trying to replace them each year. And I'm lucky to have some very good owners who can buy the likes of Tim Sider and obviously Mr. Hemmings, who can buy those sort of horses or try and find those sort of horses. But I've got two or three for Tim Sider, Severano, who was second in his first hurdle race at Sandown, Shaughnessy, who was third at Uttoxeter Exeter, and Mr. Hemmings, Trevor Hemmings, has got a couple of youngsters. Exton Lane, who was third in his chase at Carlisle, who's in the similar mould as Many Clouds, and a horse called Tarada, who was second in his first bumper at the same day as Exton Lane ran at Carlisle. So there's plenty of young stock coming through. How far up the ladder they go is another matter.
Oh, it did. I mean, I guess it's wishful thinking and time will tell, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we all dream. You have to.
Of course, very much so.
Owner or trainer.
I mean, I suppose having the likes of Trevor Hemmings, who's renowned for being an amazing owner and, putting a lot of money back into the game, it makes your job perhaps a little bit easier.
Yes and no. It does from the angle of having the horses, but then you put more pressure on yourself to try and provide another horse like that, So
True.
Mr. Hemmings is very patient. He gives them all a chance and hopefully get up to a certain level, as does Tim Sider as well, who's got a lot of horses now. So, no, listen, we're lucky to have big owners like that in the yard, absolutely.
No, I mean, obviously, having a look perhaps at racing last weekend, there was a bit of controversy last Saturday in regards to the chase fences at Haydock. I know you didn't have any chase runner on the card that day, as far as I'm aware.
No, I didn't.
Well, from what obviously a lot of people have come out and had various sort of opinions as to what's happened. Do you think there perhaps needs to be a few changes made there? I mean, touching on many clouds that we did before, you'd imagine that you'd have relished a test like that, really.
Yeah, but nobody wanted to. It's not the height or the stiffness of the fence. It's the Irish boys made a very good point. Obviously, I wasn't there, so I can't comment having not seen it. Yeah. But from what I've heard from other people, it's the belly of the fences which is the most important. It wants to be inviting. They don't want to be just straight up, down. They've got to produce an inviting fence, and the belly of the fence is the most important. And say Robbie Parr and the Irish boys said that in the papers the following day or the day after. I think most people said. I do think it is slightly annoying that all the fences should be throughout the whole country should be all the same, as far as I'm concerned, and exactly the same with the hurdles. I don't personally like. You've got at the moment 3 types of hurdles. You've got these new padded hurdles, which I think are very good. You've got the old hurdles, and you've got the little brush hurdles. And I personally think that they should be. Every course should have the same
sort of a standardised sense. I suppose there's no arguing, even if you're then schooling at home as well. If everyone's singing from the same hymn sheet in terms of what you're schooling and what you're racing on, then the best horse wins. Really, you don't have to
exactly that. It makes it unfair. It makes it unfair on the punters as well. So it's all the same. They can know exactly where they are. It's when it's different. I think it's unfair on the horses, unfair on everybody. I think it should be standardised myself.
Yeah, I mean, looking forward as well, a horse I want to ask you about is the 5-year-old What's Occurring. He's gone from strength to strength, winning both starts at Hereford this year. What's your thoughts on him, and where do you see his end of season sort of target, really?
He showed an okay form last year, but he's grown and physically developed during the summer off. He's won a couple of. The first one was an uncompetitive race at Hereford. The second one was a much more competitive race, and I was really pleased. He beat a couple of chasers, but had good form. He's actually in the Jerry Fielden on at Newbury on Saturday. We're undecided whether to run or not because I don't think he wants very, very testing ground. Having said that, it's gone from the ridiculous to the sublime now, from being very sort of good ground and having a lot of rain today. So we're undecided whether to let him take a chance. But whatever he does this year, I can promise you he's going to be a better chaser next year. But he's a horse who's going the right way, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, have you touched upon just there? He actually has a handful of entries, doesn't he? This weekend, Newbury, Doncaster, and also Leicester on Sunday. Obviously, as you've just mentioned, that you're undecided as to whether he does go. Obviously, all ground dependent, etc. The likelihood being Newbury, from what you've mentioned. I mean, if he does go, how would you rate his chances?
Yeah, listen, he's got a very low weight. I'd say a racing weight. We're undecided whether to claim off him and have a £7, so he'd be carrying 9.10 or 9.11, or to see who's available, because Leighton's almost certain, Aspel is almost certainly going to be at Bango on Saturday. So it's $1 million question. I hope he'll have every chance. We're not going there just to make the numbers up. There's some very good horses in that race. Again, you don't get 50 grand hurdle races handed to you on a plate, so we hope he's going to be competitive.
I mean, if you were to go for a £7 claimer, is there a name that we need to sort of jot down in our notebooks?
Well, if he did, Harry Bezic would ride him, who's my £7 claimer. He's ridden us a few winners over the past year or two. He's got a horse, Enjoy Responsibly, who's won a couple of races on. He'll do the job perfectly adequately if given the chance. Yeah.
I mean, obviously, you've got a few more entries on Saturday. I know that, obviously, I'm interviewing you here on a Wednesday, and a lot can happen between now and then, but we've got the likes of Euxton Lane, Broughton's Rhythm, Manila Online, and I think Book of Gold. Obviously, like I said, at this stage, we're not sure whether any of those will run, but out of the four, who do you think probably has the biggest chance?
Yeah, Euxton Lane, subject to schooling tomorrow and everything, will definitely get a banger. Broughton's Rhythm's a possibility. Book of Gold is a possibility. Manila Online, definitely, again, subject to schooling and everything, goes to Newbury on Saturday. So we're going to be quite busy over the next few days. And Gottaway also goes to Carlisle on Sunday for a mare's listed chase.
I mean, out of the 5, is there any that you're perhaps more confident with than the others?
I'm never confident. I'm hopeful. I think we'll settle for one out of them all. I think Exton Lane is a horse we've always liked. Gottaway, this has been the sort of early season plan. We were supposed to give him a prep run prior to this, but he's got a stone bruise, so missed her engagement. But she's fit and ready to run very well. She's a mare we really like. So those two would be the best, probably, of all the ones at the moment.
Okay, just a few more questions now, Oliver. Thank you very much for your time. Obviously, the big race of the day this weekend is the Fighting Fifth Hurdle at Newcastle. You don't have an entry. It's seen by many as a bit of a match race between Buvadere and Samcro. Do you think that's a tad unfair on their rivals, or would you, if you were a betting man, would you be looking at the winner probably or more than likely coming out of those two?
Well, good question. I really like Somerville Boy. I was very impressed. He's the new kid on the block. Yeah. Taking on these boys is a big step up. Buvadere, listen, I think it's been plain when Nicky's made it plain. We're saying that Saturday is not the be-all and end-all for him. His big day will be Cheltenham in March. I'm sure Nicky would have left something to work on. Samcro, I was disappointed with Samcro at Down Royal. I did watch him. He's a horse I'd liked. I am a little bit surprised they haven't gone chasing, but understand why they're not. So I think it's a fascinating race, but I'm still in the Buvadere camp, and I hope he maintains his unbeaten record. But I wouldn't ignore Tom George's horse by any means.
Yeah, I mean, you touched upon Down Royal. Obviously, Samcro was beaten that day, and the winner that day reopposes. Do you think a lot of people are perhaps discrediting that run unfairly against the winner? I'm just trying to remember the name of the horse now.
Listen, you boys love trying to sort of stir it all up. I don't mean you personally, but this has been a very difficult and different autumn this year. Gordon Elliott made it plain that he hadn't even been on grass this year, as the majority of our horses hadn't. He came up against a horse who's had a race, was hardened, and a lot of horses. I mean, we're scooting on grass tomorrow for the second time this autumn. That's unheard of, and it's December this weekend. So it's been very, very difficult to prepare horses. Hence the reason there haven't been many runners in races. And hence the reasons now we're getting rain. You're going to get 1,000,001 horses running everywhere and horses getting balloted out. So it's just been one of those autumns which no one can control. So you've just got to... and the form book is going to go out the window a little bit over the coming weeks, months.
Indeed. Now, very, very gracious in giving us your time. One final question before we let you go, Oliver. It's a question that we ask every single guest that appears on the show. For all, obviously, you love the sport of racing and your contribution is massive. If you could change one thing about the sport that we love, what would it be?
Prize money at the lower end, not the top end.
And do you think there is anything that can be done in regards to that? Do you think there is simple steps, or is it just a bit of a mathematical conundrum that perhaps people need to seriously sit down and consider?
What they do, I think it's, you've got a sort of 100 or 200 grand race at the festival, 150 grand race, and they said they're putting in another 20 grand. I think that sort of should go to the middle stroke, your lower tier. An extra 20 grand isn't going to make any difference to a 100 grand race.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose...
to the top end boys.
Yeah, I suppose it's a case of looking after your day-to-day racing owners and trainers and not just catering to those at the top, I suppose. Yeah,
it's catering for all sorts, not just, as you say, the higher echelons of the game. I don't think this is just racing. I think it's in sport in general. The big boys earn good money, whether you're footballers, cricketers, boxers, or whoever. And it's the same in racing, whether it be more so in flat racing than national hunt racing, probably. But it's the middle, bottom end tier. Struggle around owners and jockeys, and it's giving them half a chance. Having said that, the Jockey Club do a fantastic chance by having, sort of like the day on Saturday, having grassroots series for northern boys I think every race is worth 35 grand. So for that, it's very good. So I think it's good that they sort of produce these sort of races for certainly the Northern Boys and for lesser horses and owners.
Indeed. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but by all accounts, you're a Chelsea fan. You've mentioned the football, and I suppose that, like you've mentioned, you'd hope that the bigger sort of names in sport, any sport, you'd hope that there'd be a trickle down effect against. I guess in football, you're talking lower clubs, lower league clubs, even sort of non-league clubs, local teams, and I guess it's the same in racing. Or you'd hope it'd be the same in racing. One last question. I know I've already said that. As a football fan, how do you rate in Chelsea's chances this year?
Well, until the other day, till the weekend, quite good. We'd rather gone under the radar at the start of the season. People hadn't sort of taken notice of us, and I hadn't got a clue who our new manager was at all. But I've been very impressed with them. And I think Eden Hazard is probably one of the best players in the world, let alone in this country. And he's been left free to play his normal game, so to do what he wants. So they'll pick up something this season, that I'm certain of.
Thank you very much for coming on the show, Oliver. You've been an absolute star, and all the best for you and your team this season.
Good man.
Thank you very much, Oliver. Cheers. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.